Yeah, so this trips people up, and I've just recently come up with this way to describe it a little bit differently. So we already talked about it. The IRS wants you to spend at least 5% of the assets on an annual basis. And I specifically say spend because it includes anything in relation to the charitable purpose of the foundation. So most often we're going to be saying, hey, a grant to another 501c3 is part of the 5%. It's a charitable grant that counts. Like that's typically what the IRS wants to do. But any other expense in direct relation to the charity, whether it's administrative expenses, travel expenses, you're buying, this time of year in December, food, clothing, and shelter, providing that kind of stuff would be considered a direct charitable activity. Those count towards that 5% requirement. So it comes like this time of year. Well, what is that 5%? When do I need to do it? How does it calculate? And it's actually based on the average assets of the foundation throughout the year. So if you had a full calendar year, we would look at the average assets from January through December, calculate that all up, and 5% of that's actually technically a little less than 5% because you can withhold 1.5% for cash. But that number becomes your 5% expenditure requirement. But it's based on the previous year. So what that means is there's no requirement in the initial year that you contribute or establish the foundation. And just for argument's sake, let's say December 1st, you establish a foundation. The average amount is going to be prorated because it's only been in existence for a month. So your 5% for the initial year is already going to be far less than 5% of the total. And that carries forward to the following year. So when we file the tax return for 2025 or whatever the previous tax year is, that's actually the only time we know exactly what the 5% is because it's a moving target each year. The investments are changing, the expenses are changing. And so we actually don't know. And so even the biggest foundations, they are always budgeting from the year previous. Now, in those cases too, they're also sometimes spending more than 5%. So that's a whole nother thing. But we file the tax return. We know exactly what the 5% was for the previous year. That becomes your 5% for that year. If it was already satisfied, there's no requirement to spend in that year. And you wait until the second year. File a tax return, you know exactly what the 5% was. That's what your budgeted amount. So this, again, goes back to personal ideology. Some people, they want to go especially in the early years, they want to keep as close to the 5% or exactly at the 5% so that more money is available to continue to grow the foundation. More mature foundations are spending somewhere between 6 to 8% of their foundation assets on an annual basis. And typically through additional contributions and investment growth, they're far outpacing that anyways. So that's the general premise is there's no requirement now. And this is another hallmark of the foundation. You can give today and decide where to distribute tomorrow and or next year.